Well, let's do, okay, we went through Genesis 1 through 6. We went through 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11. We talked about Babel. Oh, okay, so you guys weren't here. Did you get to watch the children's video? Okay, so you're caught up. All right. Are you caught up? Yes, I caught you up. Okay. Everybody's caught up. Sorry. So we're at the place after Babel and after the languages got dispersed and after the continents divided and moved. So the continents moved, the languages were divided and the continents were divided, right? So now we have ethnic groups, right? Okay, we have people groups, right? How many races? One race, human, right? One race, human. All are made in the image of God, right? The likeness. We're to be responsible. Does that mean God looks like us or we look like him? Physically? No. See this place over here called Ur? Anybody know what country that is? I heard it. Iraq. Iran is to the right. Iraq. You go up, you should have Armenia, which has been taken over by Turkey, and you should have Kurds, which both Iraq, Iran, and Turkey have. And they're annihilating. You know, there's a Holocaust on Kurds. There was an Armenian Holocaust, and that was done by Turkey. No uproar, no world throwing. Yeah, no outcry, no anything like what we're hearing on this tiny little strip of land over there called Canaan. So all that you see there, except for that tiny little area where you see those little blue dots, where it says Canaan, that's Israel, that's Jewish. Everything else, Muslim. Everything else you see on that map, Arab, Muslim. Ishmael and Esau. You've got two. And out of the two, oddly enough, you don't want to be Esau, you want to be Ishmael. If you look scripturally, you don't want to be Esau. So that's your geography. So between where Ur is, you see there's two rivers that go up. One's the Euphrates and one's the Tigris. Okay? So from Ur, from this water outlet over here, all the way and curving down into Canaan, we call that the Fertile Crescent. Okay? So once you get into geography, well, I don't know. Do they still teach that? Apparently not. That would be the Fertile Crescent. It's also called the cradle of civilization. Okay? This is where humanity begins. This is where our time begins. This is where the majority of what we read in the Old Testament takes place in this area. Because you can still see part of Egypt over here. And you can see Babylon, Ur. Okay, Persia is basically. They've got different names, country names now, but this is the idea. So after the continent shifted and the languages were confused and people got in their groups and their land masses, did he tell him he wasn't going to flood the whole earth again? He did. Okay. Are there localized floods? Yeah.
Probably,
Yeah, there is. We see them all the time, right? We see flooding everywhere, but not a worldwide flood. So man knew better, and God, that's why he confused everything, right? Okay. So out of this area, he goes through the line of, let's see, Noah had 3 sons.
Shem, Ham, Japheth.
Right? Okay. Ham disrespected his father. Did a no-no. His family line is cursed. But Sham's line, right? Shem's line is the line that God is going to start following and pulling out. God is dividing. I thought he was a God of unity. We're supposed to be united. God divides. God separates. And he also tells us to what? Separate. Kadosh. What is Kadosh? Be separate. Set apart. But as set apart people, we are to be united. Oh, it's kind of like an oxymoron. The world doesn't understand that. Okay. So out of this area, God identifies a man named Abram. Okay? And Abram is like 75 years old. By the time he comes down into Canaan, he tells him to leave Ur. Possibly merchants. We don't know, but there's wealth here. This is the cradle of civilization. They probably lived in a home, not a tent. Okay? Because Ur is a city. They're city dwellers, so they're living in a building, right? Do you know this is also the area where later on, way ahead of us in our Bible stories, is where Queen Esther goes. What do we know about them? They know things. They know science. They know math. They know beauty. So they know how to use herbs. They know how to use the things from the earth. They have beauty products for the women. Why do I bring that out? Oh, did I tell you about Sarai? Nobody ever talks about Sarai. God tells Abram, I want you to leave your comfort, your wealth, everything you know. You know, he's older than I am. So I want you to leave everything you know, and I want you to go where I tell you, and just follow my directions. Because they don't have pictures like we have. They don't have travel like we have, right? Everything's going to be donkey, camel, or foot. So he goes up to Haran. And then from Haran, he's there with his father Terah and his nephew Lot. But then if you look at the ages, he leaves Terah. We think when we read, if you read Bible, if you look at it, he leaves Haran. He leaves his father. And he goes down into Canaan. We read Terah died. Well, yeah, Terah did die. But Abraham left before he died. Look at the numbers. Look at the age. Check me and make sure I'm telling you the truth, okay? You got to read that this week. Tell me if I'm telling you right. And he goes down to Canaan. And he lives in a tent. In dirt. But there's this funny thing about Sarah, who's older than I am. She is strikingly gorgeous. I have yet to see a picture of anybody depicting her as anything other than old and haggard. And yet scripture clearly states she was striking. Striking. Okay? So much so that when they go into Canaan and there's a famine, he goes over to Egypt and he says, now Sarai, you tell them that you're my sister. Don't tell them you're my wife because they'll kill me to take you. That's how beautiful she was. Why didn't he just cover her up and throw a sack over her?
Right.
Because he's not Muslim.
Dirt. You know, but she's beautiful. She's striking. That's outward beauty. But if God chose Abram and Sarai to be the father and the mother of his people, she's the matriarch. She's not just a beautiful outside person, is she? She is his helpmate. They are a unit. And we'll find out more things in their story. And sometimes they did things that you're like, why did you do that? Well, I don't know, because I can look at my life and go, oh, God, why did you do that? Sometimes I do some pretty stupid things. Okay, and they really don't make they made perfect sense at the time, but I can look back and go, man, that was stupid. Okay, so don't look at Abram and go, man, why did you do that stupid thing? Because he's human. So are we. And we have his written account to stop us, and we still do it. Okay? All right. So that's the story of Abram and Sarai. And they go from Ur, beautiful home, probably wealth, servants, ease, a life of ease. I don't know, I'm guessing. They go up to Haran, a place they don't even belong. And then Abram goes down into Canaan, where God tells him to go. And lives in a tent for the rest of his life. and travels and moves. So that's not stability. I don't know, but you know, women, we like, our home is our security. A man's job is his security. Am I right? Right? Your identity, your security is your job, your work. But a woman is her home. So they're both moving. They're both trusting, aren't they? Okay, so that's what I wanted you to get out of that day. And then next week we'll talk more about how he becomes Abraham and she becomes Sarah. Their names are changed, okay? Yeah? Okay, that's a long distance to walk or ride, to change locations, isn't it? Did he go alone, you think?
No.
I think he had servants.
He took his
Because
whole
he had wealth.
household.
He took his whole household and his nephew.
Mhm.
Because we find out later that they have to actually divide. There's so many of them. And we find out later there's so many stories about Abram. We're going to be talking about Abraham for a couple weeks, okay? Because he actually takes like an army out of his own household, meaning his servants, because he doesn't have any children. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't tell you that part. He tells Abram, you're going to leave your country. You're going to leave your comfort. You're going to go into this other land. And out of you, I'm going to make a great nation. Abram 75, 60. I don't want no baby. I'm 63.
Just saying.
Nope.
Whose bright idea is that?
So you said their names changed. So in the old days, names meant something.
Oh, yes.
Pertaining to what you were going to do in life.
Yes.
So they were doing something, and then God moved them and changed their names because now God's got plans for them to do something else.
Yes.
So in our case, we're the same way. God has got us here. If He wants us here, it's for something else.
Ooh.
So God's never standing still. He's always got something planned for everybody, especially for, we're supposed to be His believers.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to be depending on Him for
Mhm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Not just material things,
Mm-hmm.
not just health, but everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if He wants us, if we are here, and all of a sudden we're here, I go, why am I over here? Because I'm following God. That's
Mm-hmm.
where He wants us. So what are we? We are God's messengers.
That's right. Light and salt and messengers of truth. Mm-hmm. That was a good point. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yep, their names change because there's meaning in names. Names have meaning. Okay? And a great nation. But again, I say, whose idea was it to have a baby? Oh, and she doesn't even have a 65. Do you know how old she is when she has her baby? Or should I save that for another time?
Is she in her 70s?
No.
Is she 90?
Yeah.
She was almost a century.
He was 100. She was 90. Again, I say, whose bright idea was that? Sorry.
He knows what He's doing.
He does, doesn't he?
He knows what He's doing. Even
He
though we
does.
can't see it.
So you know what that tells me? They're active. They're not sedentary, they're active. But she's beautiful. Wow. Inside and out. Okay. So there's a lot more stories about Abraham and Sarah, or Abram and Sarah. And then we'll talk about the name change probably maybe next week, okay? And how he changes his name, maybe. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Looking ahead. See, from Ur to Babylon to Haran down to Damascus. You've heard of Damascus, right? That's in modern day Syria. It used to be considered part of, you're going to hear later today in the adult lesson. Damascus is part of the 10 towns. Thank you, Decapolis, thank you. And he goes into Canaan, but then there's a famine and he goes into Egypt and then he comes back into Canaan. Okay? So that's the life of Abram and Abraham. So he's Abram until he gets into Canaan.
That's That's during Genesis 11,
Genesis between 11 and
12.
yeah, all the way to 20 something. The life of Abram. So anyway, you've got Abram from Ur to Babylon to Haran. See that Fertile Crescent? See the green? That's the Fertile Crescent. Okay. And then they go down into Canaan, and there he becomes Abraham, and she becomes Sarah. Okay, which is the princess, the mama. She's the princess. Okay, and then they go into Egypt and come back into Canaan. All right. Okay.